Are there any just saxophonists that you love listening to that you would suggest that, you know, you're into jazz, you should start listening to this person, or you're into classical, you should start listening to this person? What do you think, or is it mostly your teachers that inspire you?
Well, my teachers are always number one for me, and they include gentlemen by the name of David Pope, Chris Mertz, Tom Barry, Michael Brockman. Timothy McAllister is a saxophonist I had the opportunity to study with for a few summers when I was working at the Interlochen Music Camp. And he, as a name to bring up, has really kind of redefined the classical alto saxophone. But he's generally playing very modern music, and like I said before, working with composers that are living and doing really cool stuff. He tours around with symphony orchestras, tours the whole world, and so he's a name for me that I look at as really shaping the sound of that instrument. On the jazz side, I like so many different types of jazz. And alto saxophonists, tenor saxophonists, baritone saxophonists. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on a multi-instrumentalist, played a lot of tenor saxophone, also flute, and a lot of other instruments that we wouldn't typically identify with improvised music, like the oboe and the bassoon and a lot of non-Western instruments. And his name was Yusef Lateef. So he's primarily the guiding force of my jazz inspiration at the moment. But I play a lot of alto saxophone. There's a great West Coast jazz musician named Art Pepper. Back in the 50s and 60s, he was very busy. That I love the sound of Art Pepper. And I could go back to the names that more people know, like Charlie Parker is a bebop musician. Still, I listen to that music and it has a ton of energy. Same thing with John Coltrane and all those top names of the kind of what people associate with jazz are still definitely really inspiring to me as well.
And so are you able to listen to their music? Do they have recordings? Most of these teachers are your inspiration?
Oh yeah, and we live in such a great age to listen to music because of the availability that the internet provides, and being able to go on streaming services, even on places like YouTube, where there's this entire collection of music available to us for free. I'm old enough where I still remember before the internet. And I remember we wanted music, I usually went to the public library and got a CD or even a cassette tape and took it back, and I could listen to it for 3 weeks. And I remember being able to copy CDs, and that was a big thing. So still, in my house to this day, I have these binders and binders of CDs from like when I was in college, and I would go to the library and copy all this music just to be able to listen to everything. But I think the good part about that was I developed a really close knowledge of select musicians, select saxophonists, because I wasn't able to necessarily see everything all the time. That I listened to the things that I was able to access a lot more. So the internet's great, and I still like being curious about going down a musical pathway, listening to somebody else, and then seeing where that takes me, and finding things that I wouldn't have uncovered in a different way.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I used Napster.
Yes, I use Napster all the time.
Music, and I had dial-up, so I had to turn it on, use it at night, and sometimes in the morning it still wasn't done downloading the one song that I wanted to get. So then I'd have to restart the next
But you really appreciated that song.
Oh, so much, yeah. And you know, that's the thing, I think, with having music at our fingertips, it's great, but really getting the in-depth knowledge of a couple songs and really seeing the inner workings is something that, to a large extent, unless you're really sitting down and trying to do that, people don't get now. Mm-hmm. And the other thing for me is the concept album, like the entire album, listening to an album from start to finish. That's something that happens less and less by using Spotify and Pandora, and they're great. They're great applications, mm-hmm. but there's something to be said about listening from start to finish and really what the artist was trying to convey, not just in a single song, but in the whole album.
Yeah, I think that's important, that musicians still do take that image of the grander whole, creating 10, 12, 15 pieces and creating a storyline with it. Sometimes that gets lost when you're just meandering about and listening to one thing at a time. But mm-hmm. So yeah, there's pros and cons to both, certainly.